Some days you're completely fine, and then out of nowhere, you're not. You're overwhelmed, you're irritated, anxious, maybe you even go numb or emotionally shut down. And the worst part, you don't even know why. If that sounds familiar, you might be stuck in emotional dysregulation, one of the most difficult and pervasive problems for people who've come from traumatic childhoods. But the problem is that when we are emotionally dysregulated, many of us don't even realize it. It's just how we've always been. And because of that, we don't even know how it can be changed or that it can be changed. So in this video, I'm going to break down what emotional dysregulation is, how to recognize what this looks like in yourself, and what you can do to start regaining your emotional balance. Or maybe you can finally be emotionally balanced. Maybe you've never even been there. I know that I had no idea what that looked like for many, many years of my adult life. Hi, I'm Madalena, and this is You Reclaimed. Here we talk about how to take our lives back from the grip of childhood trauma, of anxiety, and emotional dysregulation so that we can finally live on our own terms. So what is emotional dysregulation? Let's start with the basics. Being emotionally dysregulated is when your nervous system has a hard time managing your emotions. Instead of your emotions rising and falling naturally and evenly, like a gentle wave, they spike too high or they crash too low, or they get completely stuck. Sometimes this looks like overreacting. You're easily angered or you become angry suddenly without any obvious reason. You panic or you have emotional breakdowns over things that seem small or that don't exactly demand the kind of emotional reaction that they bring out in you. Other times, your emotions shut down completely. You become numb, you feel disconnected, or you can't get yourself to respond emotionally at all. And the fun part is that for many of us, these emotional extremes swing between one side or the other constantly. Intense emotions one day, complete numbness the next. At my lowest, I could easily switch between competing emotions like I was on a perpetual roller coaster. 1 hour I was happy, the next I was crying hysterically or falling into the depths of despair and completely unable to think or reason my way out of whatever I was feeling. Because thinking or reasoning were the only ways I had to try to get out of emotional overwhelm. If you've ever been told that you're too sensitive, that you're overreacting or cold and detached, there's a very good chance dysregulation is a big part of your emotional landscape. And we're not talking about your personality. This is about how your nervous system is wired. Many of us have no idea that emotional dysregulation is a response we learned at one time. If you grew up in a chaotic or unpredictable environment, your nervous system eventually had to adapt so that the little kid you could survive. Whether your parents just didn't have the skills to parent you or to respond to your emotional needs, or you grew up in an emotionally or psychologically abusive home, a lot of times the best option was to emotionally shut down completely because that was the safest way to cope at the time. And this protected you while you were young. It created a sort of escape hatch that kept you safe in a place that you couldn't very well escape. So it did have a purpose at one time, but shutting down or dissociating when you were little came with a price, because now as an adult, you don't know how to manage your emotional reactions because, well, you never learned to express your emotions in healthy and reasonable doses. But the problem is that those old responses, they don't work very well in adulthood. They make your relationships hard. They make it really hard to deal with the small everyday stresses of life, never mind the big stresses that can come up. And the end result is that you end up feeling like you have no control over yourself. And to add to this emotional turmoil, for many of us, it becomes part of a pattern where we react in inappropriate ways. And then afterwards, recognizing that we've reacted inappropriately, because of course we can tell, we feel deep shame and embarrassment and guilt because now we've reacted in this way. And so we enter this cycle of emotional outburst or shutdown and then shame and guilt, and we can never quite find our way out of it. So why does trauma cause emotional dysregulation? When you've been through trauma, especially in your childhood, your nervous system gets stuck in survival mode. In fact, childhood trauma physically changes your brain. Instead of reacting to stress in a balanced way, your brain now defaults to extremes, and those are usually fight or flight. And the more this happens, the harder it is to get into the habit of regulating your emotional reactions, because now you're stuck in a chronic loop that just goes round and round and round. This is why some people who grew up in emotional chaos feel like their emotions are completely out of their control, because at some point they really were. And here's something important. When your nervous system gets stuck in this survival mode, your body stays on high alert even when there is no danger. And even when everything is fine, it's really, really easy for you to look at all normal life challenges or stresses as a threat. Because early trauma makes you a kind of human threat barometer. And even if the chaos of your childhood is long gone, your antenna now stays up at all times, always working in the background, scanning for possible trouble. So now as an adult, you find yourself exhausted, even when nothing stressful has happened in your day. Or you have a great morning only to get to the afternoon feeling completely emotionally wiped out for apparently no reason. And it's because your nervous system is working overtime. It's working in the background, actually, even when you're not aware of it. And when your nervous system puts up with this kind of overactivity for a long time, eventually it becomes exhausted. And then emotional regulation is almost impossible. This kind of nervous system exhaustion starts to feel like a chicken before the egg type of conundrum. You get to a point where you have no idea what the real stress is anymore. Is it something that's actually taking place in your real life right now that's causing you stress? Is it a real problem, or are you just trapped in a loop of your own nervous system reacting to nothing and making it seem like there is real stress? And we can spend years living in this kind of confusion, losing track of what's real, not knowing whether our reactions are our own trauma responses or reactions to real threats happening right now. I lived like this for the better part of my early 20s. At one point, I lost all ability to tell what was real and what was my own nervous system just pouring gas on itself. In fact, I went a step above and replaced the chaos of my early life with full-on panic disorder that went on for many, many years because it let me continue playing in the same playground of emotional chaos that I was already used to living in. I didn't know anything else. But the good news is that all of this is something that we can heal from. By recognizing our emotional patterns and triggers, we can re-regulate. So let's talk about some of the signs that you're stuck in emotional dysregulation. How do you know that this is something that is affecting you? Here are some of the biggest clues and red flags. Extreme mood swings. You feel fine one moment, then suddenly you're overwhelmed, you're anxious, or you fall into a deep rage. Emotional overload or shutdown. You go between emotional extremes. Either you feel way too much or you feel completely numb. Overreacting to small things. You overreact to little things, not just occasionally, but all the time, regularly. You feel like minor inconveniences or slight criticisms, the wrong word from a friend or partner, they send you spiraling. You have difficulty calming down. Even after the trigger is gone, you can't calm your emotions for hours, even days. You feel like you can't trust your own emotions or your reactions. You second guess if your reaction is reasonable or normal. You have problems controlling your impulses. You react impulsively, lashing out at people, or you find ways to sabotage yourself. And you make decisions based on very high or very low emotional points rather than when you're feeling even and logical. People-pleasing or avoidance. You do your best to adjust yourself to what you think other people want because you want to avoid conflict or discomfort. If any of these sound like you, know this. It's not your fault and it is fixable. You're not broken, I promise. This is what trauma does to the nervous system. But the good news is that your nervous system can come back into balance. So how do we start rebalancing our emotions? Emotional regulation is a skill, and like any skill, it's something that we can learn. The more we practice, the better we get at it. So here's where you can start. Learn to identify your triggers before anything else. Instead of getting caught in emotional spirals, start noticing what it is exactly that sets you off, because the more aware you are of what triggers you, the more control you'll have. Use any soothing techniques for your nervous system that appeal to you. These can be deep breathing, cold exposure, grounding exercises, physical movements like Tai Chi or yoga. All of these can calm an overactive nervous system. I'm a big fan of walking meditation, and I find it to be one of the best ways to calm my nervous system when I feel overwhelmed. Practice emotional naming. Instead of saying I'm angry or I feel bad, try to pinpoint what you're actually feeling. Is it anger? Is it fear? Is it shame, discomfort? The more specific you are, and the more you practice expanding your vocabulary of emotions, the easier it is to de-escalate extreme emotions. I have a video coming up soon on this subject because this is something that really helped me, and I want to tell you more about it. Shift from reacting to responding. When you feel your emotions rising quickly, pause, take a deep breath, and ask yourself always, what is the best way to handle this? Instead of reacting on impulse, between a trigger and your reaction, you need to get used to inserting a pause. At first, it won't come naturally. You'll have to practice until you remember more and more that there should be a pause there. Give yourself time to recover. Sometimes you're still going to feel overwhelmed, but you can get better at bouncing back faster when this happens. And the more you practice, the easier it gets to put your emotions back on track. Use physical regulation techniques. Your body plays a huge role in emotional regulation, and a lot of trauma gets stored in our bodies. So practice things like progressive muscle relaxation, walking meditation, and even singing or humming can help so much to calm an overactive nervous system. Walking meditation and humming are some of the easiest ways to start. They are two of my favorites, and they obviously take no training at all. I like to combine the two when I need to focus my thoughts or put a nice long pause between something that's triggered a familiar and quick reaction in me and the way I actually want to react. If you've struggled with emotional dysregulation for years, the most important thing I want to leave you with is this. You're not alone, and you're not too sensitive, and you're not too much. Your nervous system is just doing what it learned to do. But with practice, you can retrain it. It is under your control. You just have to start. Which of these signs of emotional dysregulation do you struggle with the most? Drop me a comment and let me know. Especially if you find that something in particular helps. It might just help somebody else. And if you haven't yet, subscribe, because we're going to keep talking about how to break out of these trauma cycles and finally heal. You have more power than you think, so use it. I'll see you in the next video.